Was it with Pope Leo? Because I know he's been doing the Pater Noster. Was that kind of the inspiration behind this Sing with the Pope series?
It was Regina Coeli.
Okay.
So it was the first Angelus he did. And he did Regina Coeli. And everybody,
what is this?
Yeah, he can sing. He's a cantor.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then our aim as Pontifical Institute of Sacred Music is to help people to sing with the Pope, sing with the Church. And so we did it. And so sing the cantus proprius, as you said. So the repertoire, the chants proper to the Roman Church to people. And people love it all around the globe. And I think the nicest comment that we got is, congratulations, Father, you just made an atheist sing with the Pope.
Welcome here in Rome once again with the For Pete's Sake podcast, offering you a front row seat into the happenings and events in the heart of the Catholic Church. I am joined today by Father Robert Mehlhart, Rector of the Pontifical Institute of Sacred Music in Rome, also known as PIMS, which trains church musicians and teachers of sacred music, rendering service to the Church throughout the world. He is also Dean of the Vatican's University of Music, I believe. And if you're watching, you can see he's also a Dominican priest and friar. Welcome to the podcast, Father.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, it's great to have you here.
Thank you.
Starting off, can you tell us where in Germany you're from? Tell us a little bit about it and how you ended up in Rome as the rector of the Pontifical University of Sacred Music.
Yeah, so I come from Bavaria, which is the very south of Germany. And so it's basically the region where Benedict XVI is from. So there's a wonderful lake just between Munich and Salzburg, which is already in Austria, and it's called the Chiemsee Lake, Chiemsee. It's beautiful. It has 3 little islands on it and in it, and one is actually a wonderful monastery. It's the oldest female monastery or monastic community on the globe. So it's a Benedictine monastery, and the first abbess is actually a granddaughter from Charlemagne, and they're still there without interruption. So has never known a reformation. So it's a very kind of intact, culturally Catholic region. So Benedict XVI and his brother, who then was my teacher at Regensburg, they are from the south of the lake.
Amazing.
And we are from the north of the lake. It's literally like that. So yeah.
Wow.
So I grew up there. It's rural, I would say. There are lovely little towns with a long history, and so the big cities would be Salzburg and Munich.
Yeah, that's great. And then grew up there. Was it from that point on that you moved from there to the priesthood, becoming Dominican, or did you go to university first and then discern the vocation?
So it's even so. I think so. My life comes in 10-year pockets. So the 10 years, the first 10 years were with my family in Upper Bavaria, and then I actually joined the choir of the cathedral choir of Regensburg. Okay, and so that is, I suppose, the oldest boys' choir in the world. It was founded in 975. So this is why this year, actually, they celebrate their 1050th anniversary.
Wow.
And I was really
incredible.
very, very happy to have been invited and to be there in Regensburg with them and to see that the school is thriving and the choir is thriving.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy about that. So, and at the time, Georg Ratzinger was the director of music of the Regensburger Domspatzen is the German name. So the Regensburg Boys Choir. Yeah. And I loved singing, and so it was clear that I had a propensity for music, and I was kind of gifted, and I liked it. The idea came up that I think that would be a good thing for him to join that choir and to be in that institution, but you have to audition. And I remember it like today, the audition with Georg Ratzinger. He was a very, very kind, at the time already kind of elderly, in his last years, priest, musician for the avid.
Good mix. Yeah.
Yes, it's a good mix. So he took me, and I was admitted. So you had to sing something, and then I joined the school and the institution, and that was the second pocket of 10 years. So kind of 9 years there. And so I learned Latin, I learned Greek. So we really practiced 2 to 3 hours a day. We all learned an instrument. So I learned first the piano, then the organ. And since it was a cathedral school, you had morning mass every day. So it was celebrated either by Georg Ratzinger or by the director of the boarding school at that time. And the alternative was either you went to mass or you had study time. So I always went to mass. So it was, the thing was that the more lazy ones went to mass. I will not comment on that, but I just
you can say you're pious too.
Yeah,
lazy, pious, either one.
Yeah, the pious ones. Yeah. I probably you could
mixed
say
bag.
That. It's a mixed bag, and I see that there are quite a couple of vocations from that school.
Yeah,
and now it's interesting to reflect on that when I think of who actually went to mass, to morning mass on a regular basic kind of daily basis.
Yeah,
vocations actually grew out of that. So it's a good point that you're making, James, that the pious ones. So, but I was 11.
Right.
I had 12 years old, so it's very, very early.
Yeah, but it almost seems like Martha and Mary in the Bible, where it's like you could go, you're not working, you're not studying, but you're going to the feet of our Lord. That's great. Yeah.
Yes. And surprise, I made it even through school.
Yeah. Amazing.
Without morning study time. So So, and then of course, when I was able to play the organ, I was on the rota to be the organist for these masses.
Yeah.
So to serve the community as an organist or to serve the community as a chorister was kind of at a very early stage in my biography, very much present. And so of course, but the school exists to sing at mass on Sunday.
Yeah.
So, and of course we always had our duty to sing at mass on Sunday. So, and it was plain chant, and it was basically 16th century music, so Palestrina, Orlando di Lasso, some composers from the 19th century as well, at special occasions, even with an orchestra.
Yeah.
And then accompanied with a schedule of tours and concerts all around the world. So that was a very intense musical kind of childhood, I would say.
Yeah, baptism by fire.
Yeah. And so I really have to say that the role model, I think I broke to my family that I wanted to be a priest when I was 11. And because I like praying, I like be close to the Lord, even as a boy. I like being in chapel, and the music thing was very important. So being with your friends, expressing your faith loudly in community, reflecting on it, but also proclaiming it at the same time.
Yep.
That's the thing that only music can give you.
Right.
So you experience your faith, you experience the text, you experience it emotionally.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you give testimony of it. So because it's public, people out there, they see you, they hear you, and you do it in community. So that is really the thing that marked me very deeply, and that made me think very carefully about what I was going to do with my life.
Yeah.
So when I was 15, 16, 17, I had other ideas as well. But it came back to me so that I should try the priesthood. And basically immediately after high school, I think with a couple of friends, I had a tour through Europe in our car, which just cruised Europe.
Yeah.
And that was lovely, actually. Hungary and Slovakia, Eastern Europe, interestingly. And Italy as well, the north of Italy. It was a lovely time of freedom after high school.
Right.
And then I thought, you're young. Lord, if you want to have me, I'll just try it. And I give myself to you.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work out, it was a wonderful adventure. And if it works out, I've found my place.
Yeah.
And so I applied for the Dominicans, and so first you have the postulancy, and then you have the novitiate. I did the novitiate in Frankfurt. In Worms, which is near Frankfurt am Main, so in kind of middle Germany. And after that, I went to Vienna. So I joined the then southern German Austrian province. So there you see, it's basically the same. Culturally, it's very close. So we Bavarians feel very close to the Austrians.
Yeah.
And even for Austrians, I always felt very welcome as a Bavarian in Austria.
Yeah.
I think that sometimes I don't see when they interact with people from Germany. So it's more okay.
Right. So you have that national association with people in the north, but you actually have this real kind of cultural, like even just the landscape that you're in is right in the mountains. So that formation and the way that forms the human experience, you're going to, I think, relate to those people.
Absolutely. I think it's a mountain thing.
Yeah.
And you have the same thing with Southern Tyrolia.
Mm-hmm.
So even here in Italy, when we interact with people from Brixen, for instance, as Bavarians, you have this connection. So I always thought of the Alps as a barrier, but it's actually not a barrier. It's actually a sponge, I think. So and people, it connects people, and in a very beautiful way, I think. So you might be right that while we get on with the Austrians so well and with people from the Italian side of the Alps and with the Swiss, is because we share this Alpine culture. And then I was 10 years really in Vienna. I spent 1 year at Blackfriars Oxford, which was very, very important because I really experienced the English choral tradition. Great teachers in Oxford, Edward Higginbottom at the time, Owen Rees at Queen's College, Oxford, and just to be immersed into the English choral tradition was very important. And I still have very, very dear friendships from that time that accompany me in my daily work even. Yeah. So, and Vienna, but of course, in Vienna, you study. I studied theology, and the order was very clear to me. The order said, you can pursue your music studies if you do well in theology. Okay. So that was kind of the conditio sine qua non, and I can see that. So I studied theology at the State University. It has a Catholic faculty that's unique to the German-speaking world. So our state universities have Catholic faculties. And the Grand Chancellor of the Catholic Faculty of Theology at the University of Vienna was Cardinal Schönborn, who is also Dominican. And I had a great experience of living in an old medieval monastery. So the Dominicans have been in Vienna for 800 years without interruption. And it was a very good community. I'm really thankful for that community, especially, but not only, because of the old fathers. So I remember especially Father Innocent. He remembered the end of the First World War. Wow. So he was just great. And there was no personal issue that you couldn't come with to him. Right. Kind of, if you had a question, if you had a problem, you just saw, one of the old fathers and said, I'm dealing with that. So
they've seen it all.
They have seen it all. They experienced it all. And, they had this vantage point of view from a long religious life. Yeah. And the advice I got, it's just so great. And I think that really kept me going in my Dominican vocation, because what we live is an intergenerational community in the inner cities based around prayer and evangelization and mission. And you don't find places that like that anywhere else. And I enjoyed that thoroughly. So to be, of course, in your own age group, now with even much younger people, but also with experienced friars, academically experienced, spiritually experienced, and just experience of life, that you can tap into and that you can share. And that is really one of the great joys of my religious life, that aspect. Yeah. And so that was Vienna. And of course, in Vienna, I studied theology and, of course, music. So then first I studied at the Conservatoire of the Diocese in Vienna. And then after Oxford, I applied for the University of Music and Performing Arts. And I got in, and that was
also in Munich?
No, that's all in Vienna.
All in Vienna.
We are in Vienna. So first year, 10 years, kind of Upper Bavaria, then novitiate. Then Regensburg, then novitiate, then Vienna. Okay. And I had great great teachers in Vienna. So Evan Ortner for choir conducting, and then I worked with Nikolaus Hanunkur and with Riccardo Muti, and
Muti just performed as well.
Yeah,
recently
and
for the
we had
Pope,
a wonderful conversation about sacred music just
Beautiful.
last week.
Yeah.
So and he kind of, when I said, I was a little tenor at the time 20 years ago, but you probably don't remember me, but we cooperated, and it's Erwin Ortner, so the choir master of the time and my professor of choir conducting. He's still alive, yes. And so we had a lovely conversation about the repertoire and about sacred music, and it immediately chimed. So because we worked together, although I was a little kind of tenor somewhere in the background, makes me realize how long I have been in the game, really. So I'm 43 now, I think. But since I have started when I was 11, it's I just.
Right.
It's like a ship that goes through a lot of water.
Right. Stops through a lot of ports, meets a lot of people.
Exactly like that. So, so 10 years Vienna. So with the really great Catholic tradition, Viennese tradition, Mozart, Haydn, Schubert, Beethoven, who were all Catholic composers. And this is very often forgotten, that the greatest musical minds were actually Catholic, and they wrote for our liturgy, and they meditated meditated the most important sacred texts, and turned it into music. Beautiful. For us to meditate and to enjoy, and for us to actually be uplifted in our faith.
Do you have a favorite among those composers? Yeah,
so it's always the composer I'm studying. So the day after tomorrow, I'm going to conduct the Little Organ Solo Mass by Haydn. So today, my most favorite composer is Joseph Haydn.
Okay.
And then on Christmas, it's going to be Mozart. It's Mozart. So it's always, you're always kind of, you focus on the music that you're studying, and with great art, it just absorbs you so completely, even if you have conducted it 1,000 times, that you always discover something new. It's always deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and you can always learn from these people and from the conventions and the culture that they absorbed and transmit to you.
Yeah,
and it's fascinating to discover where it ends. Where convention ends or culture ends, inheritance ends, and where the genuine contribution starts.
Yeah.
But you can't think the one without the other.
Yeah.
So, 10 years Vienna, that tradition, with a kind of an Oxford interlude.
Right.
And then the next 10 years were Munich. And so the order said, now you must leave Vienna. I was very sad, but I also saw that was very important. So I got ordained deacon, and then I did pastoral service, of course, in the parish of Cathedral of Vienna. And then I was appointed as chaplain and director of music at St. Cajetan's Church in Munich, where we also have community. So that was a great blessing, because I could live in the community and could have this job at this wonderful basilica, which is in the middle of Munich. So when you fly JFK Munich on Lufthansa, the screensaver is our church.
Really?
So, it's a landmark. So it's a major.
I'm gonna take that flight just to see that.
No, it's the big kind of yellow church, baroque, massive. It's a church to the court, to the residents. So it's the big thing. So by the cathedral, so you can't miss it. Okay. And you just don't enjoy only the outside, the facade. Go inside. This is my recommendation. Go inside.
Yeah, it's a good idea,
because it's not destroyed. So Munich was heavily destroyed during the Second World War, and our church basically stood at the end on a field of rubble. But it stood. So the roof was destroyed, but the interior was intact, and is still intact. So you can enjoy a magnificent early Baroque church in the middle of Munich. So I got that job, and my predecessor was a Dominican as well. his name was Father Amadeus. I just love that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's really awesome. So it has a very clear tradition, because the Bavarian court had a very clear music tradition, because Orlando di Lasso, who was a contemporary of Giovanni Pierluigi da Palestrina, the great guy here in Rome, he was employed by the Bavarian court and stayed there basically for all his life. So we inherit that, and then of course in the 19th century you have Reinberger, and even Mozart composed for the court, although he never got the job.
Yeah.
So then he had to move on to be a freelancer basically in Vienna after Salzburg. So, and my job was, so when Benedict XVI retired, I had the great pleasure to be sometimes invited to entertain his brother when he was in Rome, because Georg couldn't speak Italian. And so it was, and how do you entertain the brother of the Papa Emeritus when he's in Rome for days and days and days? So when I was in Rome, and so I kind of got a call and said, come this morning and just have a conversation. It was great, because in the end, I was a priest musician. Yeah. And there was a retired priest musician. And so we could talk, and he studied with my predecessor, with Father Amadeus. So that was in Munich. So the shared thing, and so we had great conversations with the repertoire I was conducting, and he was conducting. He conducted all his life. So that was just great, and I remember it Rector Day. So we had this conversation in the monasterio, and then there was a knock on the door, very discreet one, but we talked about Mozart. And about the transition between the Benedictus and the Hosanna, and tricky stuff. And so he pretended not to hear. I heard it, but it was not my turn to say, come in. Right. Because it was clearly not my house. And he was more insistently, And then Georg Ratzinger said, ja! Which means, yes, come in, And then the door opened, and in comes Pope Benedict XVI.
Oh my gosh, wow.
And he looked at me and said, I'm so sorry to interrupt. And so I fell on my knees. I kissed his ring. Yeah. And he just came to sit in front of me and said, I'm so sorry to interrupt your conversations in musicis, so in the matters of music. Yeah. So I just carry on. I just want to be a fly on the wall, basically. How do you do that?
Yeah, no pressure.
No pressure. Yeah. Oh my God. and it was fascinating to see Georg, because of course he was the older brother. Yeah. And in the dynamics of the room, it was the older brother who had a guest from his trade. Yeah. They had a lovely conversation. And so this younger brother comes, who is also the Papa Emeritus. Yeah. It was just fascinating to see.
That's an incredible experience.
Yeah, that was so. And so I pretended, so it was just very, 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 very interesting. So, but then Benedict XVI, of course, would ask questions about our church in Munich, how I was doing, and the work I was doing. And I said, well, basically, my life is a triangle. It's the triangle between the choir and the organ, the pulpit when I have to preach, and the confessional. And it was really like that. So a lot of people came for confession, and it's an increasing number now. The brothers tell me, so it's a great place. So my day first, it was Monday, and then it was Tuesday. So every brother had basically a day. This is the way it was organized, and I had around 15 to 25 people coming every day. So when you do that for 10 years. And you have basically September. Was my off month. The month I can travel to Italy basically. Yeah. So you arrive at an incredible number of nearly 10,000 confessions that you listen to. Yeah. And so it was a great experience to celebrate the sacrament with a lot of people from lots of backgrounds. Yeah. And to preach, of course. To a fantastic congregation, and to be completely immersed into that musical tradition. Right. And then after a couple of years, I got a job at the University of Music and Performing Arts of Munich as a teacher there. And So that is a secular university. And since I started at secular universities, they kind of, so my degrees, I suppose, are valid. I think that. So it was great to have that, to be a priest and a Dominican in a completely secular context and just teach, basics of Latin and plain chant to future directors of music and of course to people that want to study church music.
Right. So was that where you were before you finally came to Rome?
Yes.
Was that the last? Okay.
Yes, because basically, so what happened? I got a WhatsApp from my predecessor that my name is on a list of 3 that the Pontifical Institute of Sacred Music had to submit to the dicastery to find his successor. So I said, okay, well, that's nice. I have not studied there. I think I had been there once before, just out of curiosity when I was in Rome, but I really had no connection whatsoever to the institute.
Right.
And I said, oh, that's odd. Okay, but I'm honored because it's an honor. And I told was I the prior at that point? So I told my superiors, I told the provincial that, I'm on a list, but I'm not Italian.
Right.
So I'm a very young person from Germany.
Yeah.
They're not going to take me. Absolutely not. They're not going to pick me. And so the provincial said, you're probably right. So just, carry on. Don't take it too seriously. And then, but it was in the air. And then, month after month, kind of, and then kind of one knew that Monsignore de Gregorio, who was my predecessor, kind of would retire in October 3 years ago. And there was no successor in April. And so everybody thought, like, what's going to happen? Yes. So, and then it was in March or in April. I can't remember right now. When I remember it like today, I was on the corridor in the Priory of Munich, and I got a phone call and said, unknown number, Vatican City. And I thought, oh my God.
Yeah.
I was on my way to the coffee machine, actually.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I take it. And it was Cardinal Mendonça, the prefect of the dicastery of culture and education, who's the Grand Chancellor of PIMS. And he said, we had a lovely conversation. And I, of course, I sat down and said, it was a good conversation. And he said, would you consider it? And I said, it's a great honor. And of course, I would consider it. And then I got appointed.
Yeah. And this was 2023?
I think it was 2023.
Okay.
I think it was so my 3rd year now. Yes.
Okay.
Academic year now. Yes.
All right.
And then I basically
came to Rome. Yeah, the next 10-year period, who knows?
Yeah.
What I want to get some terms here with Gregorian chant versus plain chant. Are those the same things? Like within PIMS, is it mainly Gregorian chant that's the focus? Do you have it seems like you have a selection of other courses, I would imagine.
Yeah.
But tell me a little bit more about the Pontifical Institute of Sacred Music and what they're teaching and doing within the church.
Absolutely. So the Pontifical Institute of Sacred Music is the central university of music of Catholic Christendom.
Okay.
So it's the state university of music of the Vatican. So we have 7 academic programs.
Okay.
And in every program, you can do the bachelor, so 3 years bachelor, a 2 years licentiate, so the master, and the doctorate.
Okay.
So the oldest academic program is plain chant, which is Gregorian chant.
Okay.
So, and it covers basically the whole tradition of Latin monody.
What was that last term?
Monody.
Okay.
Because it's not polyphony.
Yeah.
So polyphony is if more than one voices sing.
Yeah.
And there is
different lines.
Yeah, harmony basically.
Okay.
But plain chant like Salve Regina Mater Misericordiae, it's in unison because it unifies us and praises God as the one family with the one
with one
church
voice.
with one voice,
Yeah.
with one heart and one voice. This
Yeah.
is what plain chant does to you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's it unifies you and
Yeah.
unifies your body and soul and your praise, and it unifies humanity in this one voice of praise.
Yeah.
It's great. So this is what we do. And so, of course, it's the official repertoire of the Holy Roman Catholic Church. It's plain chant, Gregorian chant.
Yeah.
We just we use that terminology exchangeably. So it's but Gregorian chant, because the history or iconography attributes the repertoire to Saint Gregory, the great Pope Saint. And plain chant, because it's only one voice, it's in unison.
Right.
And so this is the one course, but it's a very complicated program, because you have to deal with manuscripts. So it's the oldest musical repertoire of humanity. So
what do you mean by oldest? As in like the longest lasting? Because wouldn't we have other forms of Western music before that it would have pulled from?
Adam and Eve probably sang.
Yeah.
Well, so that's so. I think music is as old as the world.
But in terms of written music,
exactly.
Okay.
So actually, that we can notate music is the fruit of Catholics, of Christians, and it happened in monasteries, basically, and in the cathedrals of Western Christianity in the Carolingian period.
Yeah.
So we have a great surge of literacy in the Carolingian period, all sorts of literacy. So we call it the Carolingian Renaissance, where lots of Roman authors of the classic period are studied. Rhetoric is studied. A lot of new books are being written, and a surge of philosophy, Rabanus Maurus, aesthetics, theology, but also music. So we have this kind of coherent empire with a coherent form of Christianity, which is, we call it Western. And of course, it needs, let's say, branding. And of course, what you want to get it right. So you want a liturgy that is really pleasing to God. And what do the Carolingians do? They codify the repertoire. So they come up with a system, of notation. And this happens in Europe in the Carolingian period in Christianity. And what it does is, so I give you an example. If you do Salve Regina, we perceive this as a melody moving up. Salve Regina. If you ask children around the world to give me an image of what this music does, some kids would say it becomes brighter. Others would say it gets louder. But what we say, it goes up. Of course, nothing moves up. It's just frequencies, So, but when we have this image, a spatial image of things moving up and down, you can draw it.
Yeah.
So, and this is what happens in the Carolingian period. So that monks kind of give you hints, like the P is the foot, or the cleave is the top goes the bottom goes And so it's just hints, but it is basically the notation of spatial movement onto a sheet of paper that are metaphors for a musical movement. So a lot of brain work went on there. And so this happens in, let's say, in the 9th century, in Central Europe. Let's say there were different spots where it happened and different kind of dialects of notation, but this is what happened. And so this is the first time that you have a repertoire written up, a written repertoire. You can't really sight read it. It would take another 200 years. Another Benedictine monk, Guido di Arezzo, actually invented the precise notation that we still use today in plain chant. With 4 lines and square notation, and that you can really sight read.
Yeah.
There's nothing like it before. So this is the oldest repertoire of humanity, and it's the basis of everything that comes afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is in order to read it, to understand it, to know the sources, and most importantly to sing it and to teach it. So this is this program. And so then you have composition and organ and choir conducting and musicology and piano and voice studies.
Yeah.
So these are our 7 programs.
And at the heart of that, of course, is the Gregorian.
It's the oldest,
right,
yes.
yeah.
And so everybody has to just be able to sing it and to read it. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to be the guy to bring up an encyclical, but you have, or it wouldn't be an encyclical. Sacrosanctum Concilium would be one of the church documents from Vatican II.
Absolutely, yeah.
They have that in Article 16 where they speak about the church acknowledges Gregorian chant as especially suited to the Roman liturgy. Therefore, other things being equal, it should be given pride of place in liturgical settings. They also talk about the cantus proprius. Would that cantus proprius, is that just the pride of place, the proper role of it within?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
No, it's the repertoire proper to the Roman liturgy.
Yeah.
And so every day in the morning, Holy Mass is broadcast globally and live from our institute in the morning through Vatican Media. So the official Mass of the Vatican is a Latin Mass with plain chant every morning. So today at 7:20,
Yeah.
I was there. So you can see that. So the state basically, or the Holy See, rises in the morning with plain chant.
Yeah.
So with the plain chant introit, and the church knows that, and the world knows that as well.
Yeah.
I'll give you 2 examples. When you watch any James Bond, and James Bond in his Aston Martin, kind of drives into Rome because he has to sort out a villain.
Right.
And he passes St. Peter's Square. What you get is this very particular Catholic sound, and it's plain chant, and then it's kind of a Palestrina, kind of a cappella, so unaccompanied harmony Latin sound. So the world knows that this is what the Roman Catholics do. That's the first thing. And the second thing is when we launched our tutorial series, Let's Sing with the Pope, just after the election of Leo XIV. I mean, we have millions of views now on Instagram only, because the world just knows, the Catholic Church, they just know, oh God, this is great, this is ours, and please teach us. We want to learn it. And when you're born with it, or when you're experiencing it, it's very easy. But in order to get into it, it's difficult because it's the Latin, it's the notation, it hasn't got a rhythm, or the rhythm is kind of together with words, and what do they mean anyway? So now with this karaoke thing, we found a way how to teach it in little snippets to people, and they just picked it up so greatly. Yeah. And so that it was sleeping there, but it was always there. Right.
Was it with Pope Leo? Because I know he's been doing the Pater Noster. Was that kind of the inspiration behind this Sing with the Pope series?
Yeah, it was Regina Coeli.
Okay.
So it was the first Angelus he did. And he did Regina Coeli. And everybody,
what is this?
Yeah, he can sing. He's a cantor. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And then our aim as Pontifical Institute of Sacred Music is to help people to sing with the Pope, sing with the Church. And so we did it. And so sing the cantus proprius, as you said. So the repertoire, the chants proper to the Roman Church to people. And people love it all around the globe. And I think the nicest comment that we got is, congratulations, Father, you just made an atheist sing with the Pope.
That's awesome.
Because he liked, I loved it. Yeah.
Right. No, because you can draw them with the beauty, even if they can't get behind other certain things.
And it's the beauty, but it's also the techie aspect. Yeah. Wow, this is karaoke. I love karaoke. Right. I can do this, and nobody's listening to me. So it's not like that I have to show up to class, or there's a choir master I don't know, or there are other people. No, I can be comfortable in my home and try it and then perhaps, with this confidence, show up
Right.
and share it with others. But it's just the propedeutic
Yeah. Yeah.
to that. And so, yes, I think it's this, I can do that within the comfort of my home without being exposed to others.
Right. You don't have to go to a church where they're singing Latin and feeling pressured. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Gregorian chant has a special place within the Roman liturgy. But not only that, Sacrosanctum Concilium goes on to not just Gregorian chant, but music itself is an art form. They say the musical tradition of the Universal Church is a treasure of inestimable value, greater even than that of any other art. The main reason for this preeminence is that as sacred song united to the words, it forms a necessary or integral part of the psalm liturgy.
Yeah, I mean, there's no passage in the Bible where somebody painted a saint or Jesus.
Right.
But the angels, no, the shepherds found the way to Jesus because there were choir of angels singing.
Yeah.
And after they adored God in Jesus Christ, they returned home joining the choir of angels and sung.
Yeah.
So it kept them going, basically, and kept them in the spirit of adoration. And so where there's God, there's music, and where there's a church, there's the church's job is to proclaim, to glorify and to proclaim the Lord, and it does it with song.
Yeah,
always done it.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So as we close out this conversation, Father, we have our fire round, a rapid fire round.
Okay.
So yeah, get edge of your seat.
I take it.
It's give you a moment.
Yeah.
But for those of you listening, Father Robert Mehlhart, Rector of the Pontifical Institute of Sacred Music. Shall we get into the fire round?
Okay, good.
All right, here we go. Favorite Pope of all time?
Pius V.
Why?
Because he was a Dominican.
Okay, fair enough.
No,
there we go.
He was just, I mean, in Santa Sabina, where the general master of the Dominican order resides, we still have his room, which is now into a chapel. So even when he was a pope, he would come to the monastery to have a little retreat, to pray, to retreat from the Roman Curia into this space of a monastery.
Yeah.
And so he must have been a very, community loving spiritual man, and I just appreciate that. So there's a direct connection with Pius V, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also his tomb in Santa Maria Maggiore. It's something it's a space it's very Catholic to say that, but I like to be in his presence.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's beautiful.
You feel the presence of I feel the presence of a saint.
Right, a friendship that's not just Catholic friendship, but Dominican. There's this spiritual charisma as well.
And the story is that the popes were white because Pope Pius V was a Dominican, and he kind of would have introduced the white garment into the papacy.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Next question. Underrated saint.
Hildegard von Bingen.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that is because
he's so I think she's a lot of things for lots of people. But she's patron of Europe. She's the first female composer that we know.
There it is. That's why I like her.
Yeah, and so if you look at her writings, I mean, it's just the most fascinating stuff. So you have the theological reflections, so theology, combined with her visions. So you have the pictures and the compositions that commented. So you have all the art forms combined in the work of this great saint.
Yeah. Amen.
Amazing.
Beautiful.
No, yeah.
All right. Favorite fact about the Vatican that you're allowed to tell me?
People assume that nothing happens in Rome in August. But this is sometimes the time where I get the best answers from people.
The best answers from people? Who were working in the Vatican, Rome? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So because it's kind of everybody is relaxed. It's full of tourists.
Right.
And August is actually, I thought August is a good month to talk to people, to have inspirational discussions about projects, about collaborations.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
You wouldn't expect that, but I guess Rome
exactly.
in August, that's the time
Rome
to
in
be
August.
there.
Yeah. I mean, it is hot, and I understand why most people flee Rome in August.
Right.
But this is also a point where you can actually kind of in a common atmosphere
Catch
meet
people
Yes,
in a
have
good
coffee
spot.
with people. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Amazing. Most Catholic country, in your opinion?
It's the Vatican.
There we go. Enough said. All right. Finish this sentence. For Pete's sake, I wish people would just...
Sing more often with the Pope.
You heard it, folks. There it is.